All right, we're back with LX470. I got my very first video request via the comments. Somebody asked me how I hooked up my KC daylights to the high beam switch, and then also how I wired in my turn signals, because they're LEDs, and I actually filmed an entire video for my Instagram. So I'm going to put in some of the clips of this video. It's going to be vertical. I apologize for that, but that's how Instagram has you do it for the stories. Everyone watched that there, and I talk about the hyper flash because these you actually have to put in a resistor, otherwise these are going to hyper flash. So I'll show you how I wired those in, and then I'll include some pictures on the wire colors that go to the different wire colors. But for now, I'm going to show you first what he was asking about with the high beams. So let me do that real quick. Okay, so the high beams are not on. I just have the regular beams on right now. When I pull back on the switch, the high beams come off, the regular low beams stay on as well. Nothing happens with the auxiliary lights. Now I have a switch down here on the panel. When I push this in, essentially I've completed the circuit for my KC daylights to turn on with the high beams. So I can't turn them on independent, but when I pull the high beams, they all come on at once. So I have my low beams, my high beams, and my KC daylights on at once. And I do this because when I'm driving on backcountry roads, I want just the high beams, or I want to be able to activate all the lights that are too high for oncoming traffic. I want to be able to activate and deactivate them with just the pull of a switch. And then I've added this switch in the interior so that I can go to standard DOT headlights and high beam lights, and I don't have to run the KC lights all the time. So let me show you how I have all that wired in. Okay, so let me get you off the tripod real quick. All right, so KC daylights are right here. This is the factory, I'm not the factory, this is the KC daylight harness that comes with it. So they're both running under here. You can kind of see zip tied down there. They're all bundled together. They're tied together in there. And I've run it up through here, up and around, and then inside the fuse box. So if you notice when I was showing the high beams, they were LEDs. And because they're LEDs, they draw less power than a standard halogen bulb. So I'm using a fuse tab here on the high beam. So it's going to correspond on the high beams. I'm just running off of one of the high beams here. I've fuse tapped into it with just a standard fuse tap right here. Let's show you this. So normal fuse tap, buy these on Amazon. I have it running out of the box down, and this is actually what powers both lights. So the KCs run on 3 amps total, and then because we've gone from the halogens to the LEDs, I didn't install those, someone else did. I don't like the color. As I've said before, I much prefer the orange kind of amber color, so I'll be changing those out later for a different colored bulb, but for now they're fine, and those only draw like 1.5 amps a piece. So we've reduced the amperage massively, and so I don't mind this powering multiple lights at once because the total amps being pulled is less than original with the 2 halogens, so we don't have to really worry about overloading individual circuits or overloading wires that are too thin. So, and then this runs, let's see if I can trace it here. This goes down, and if you can see down there, it comes through, just follow that little guy right there, and I've run it through the firewall grommet right there. Switch that is designed specifically for Toyotas, so a lot of them with blank switches. This right here will slide right in there like that, and I've pulled my control wire from there using a little coat hanger. I hate this song. Coming through right there, and so we can see this wire right here. This comes through, and you see where I've zip tied it along the way, and then that goes up right here. So all this is doing is completing this circuit. So that's a a switch. It breaks the circuit. And when that's activated, then the power will come from here. When I pull the switch back, will come from here through there to the switch, and then back around and to the lights. And I used the wiring harness that came with the KC lights to do that with. It has a switch, and I just set it so that instead of the power coming from the battery, and then you activate the switch on the interior, the switch is still on the interior. I used a Toyota switch for this, but the power comes from the high beam. So when I pull the high beams, they have power, and as long as that switch is in the switch position for on, then all the power will go to the lights. So simple as that. And then you also asked about the turn signal light. So let me show you that. Okay, so here we're underneath, just to give you a kind of idea, corner of the vehicle. This is the turn signal here. Comes with the plug, but it's also labeled. So let's see if I can get up there and show you that. Hopefully it focuses for you guys. And they are labeled. So I've taken the two wires you want are from the truck are the green and the white. White and black goes to white, green goes to yellow. That's how you'll hook them up. You will need a resistor. I'll roll that footage in right now. Okay, so let me explain this. Here is the resistor. These are the wires from the car, the negative and positive, and they go into the wiring harness that then goes up to, that's the light on the outside of the bumper. I'm underneath the car. And so I've got them linked together here. I got my, this is the heat shrink wrap that once I solder these and get them, I'll slide this over and heat shrink it down, and that'll seal it up. And since this is right there, there's a near 100% chance that I will be dripping hot solder on myself. Here's my solder gun ready to go, and I'm gonna put flux on it and start soldering. Unfortunately, I can't film for you guys the soldering because it's just one-handed. But once I get it done, I'll show you, and then we'll do the heat shrink, which will be cool. Okay, so I've soldered them, and I've got the heat shrink around where the exposed wire was. I'm going to use my heat gun, and you guys can watch it shrink up. It's kind of cool. So this will protect the wires, and it literally just shrinks around. There it goes, shrunk up. We just do this up and down it until it shrinks all the way down. And I'll do the other one here in a second, but just like that, the solder joint is now covered and sealed up. So I'll do the other one, and we'll bundle all this together. All right, so I got all my wires bundled up together. This is the resistor. It gets pretty warm, so I've zip tied it to metal underneath. And then all the wires that I was soldering are wrapped up in here nice and tight. So they won't be exposed to the elements. Everything's tucked real high up, so it should last a long, long time. And best news of all, it works. So now I just gotta do the other side, and that'll wrap up for today. I did drop hot solder on myself. 10 out of 10 would not recommend, but car's done, so win. One thing I forgot while I was editing this, there's four wires coming out of that plug. Two of them obviously go to the turn signal itself, and then there were two extra wires. One is a solid on all the time amber, and one is a solid on all the time white light. You could run the white light to your daytime running lights if you wanted. You could run the solid amber on all the time to your park lights. You could run the solid orange to your daytime running lights, however you wanted it. I didn't like that. They're really bright, kind of blinding almost. And then when you activate the turn signal, it's like stacking on top of each other. It doesn't look as good as just flashing on, off, on, off. So I didn't opt to do that. But I hope this helped. If you got more questions, put them in the comments, and I'll try and answer. Thanks.